everybody, I'm here with a little video just talking about witching and self-care in times that are stressful and difficult, and where you may feel disempowered or feel frustrated or hopeless about the world. Now, I'm all for, if you are not interested in political talk or anything, that's totally fine. I feel you completely. If you are happy about the outcome of the recent election, that's fine too. Maybe this video isn't for you. But for those of you who are like me, who are utterly bewildered by the results of the election in the US and are afraid about what's going to happen next, this video is for you. And really, though, if it's for any time, I think, where you're feeling disempowered, or you're feeling like that you don't know what to do next, or feeling despondent about the state of the world. And it doesn't have to be anything political that's going on. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, so I want this video to be kind of evergreen, but I'm just talking about the context this video is being made in. But also, there's times when we go through personal difficulties. Like, I've had 2 summers in a row where I've been grieving people that I've lost. And so sometimes we're just going through a personal time of like great difficulty. And so I think all of these things can be adapted for whether it's the larger, sort of existential dread of what's going to happen in the world, down to, personal things that you're dealing with. I think that these are 10 things that can help you through any kind of difficult time. So, just so you know where I stand on things, and again, this is not to argue with people who maybe have a different point of view of the world, because we all have our own points of view, right? But personally, I'm somebody who, I describe myself politically as old left rather than new left. I am somebody who believes in things like equality. We're all equal human beings, whether we're male or female, gay or straight, whatever ethnic background, we are all equal human beings of equal value. I believe in social programs like public education and public health care. I believe that, the resources of the land should belong to the people, not to large corporations. I believe we should tax the rich so that we can pay for social programs for everyone else. So I'm generally quite a socialist and somebody who believes in equality. The reason I describe myself as old left rather than new left is because I feel like, and I could go into a whole ramble about this, but I'm going to save that for another time perhaps, is I think that the newer left is extremely divisive and far too wrapped up in let's be frank, identity politics, and has forgotten about the needs of day-to-day people, and has kind of lost touch with things. I think they're very divisive with each other, and I don't think it's very helpful. That's my rant done. But I'm not here to be divided. We all think different things and have different beliefs for different reasons, and that's totally okay, right? Let's get to my top 10 tips for getting through difficult times. And I was thinking about this, and I realized that, like, we've all been through a pandemic. Like, we've been through lockdowns, we've been through like all sorts of stuff with pandemic. And so we've also been through a previous Trump administration. We are not walking into this unprepared. We have been training for this. So remember that, you've seen some stuff before, you lived through some stuff before. And so let's, remember that. Remember, we have tools. We are not coming out of this out of nowhere. So the first thing you need to do is practice self-care. That is, there are people out there who want you to feel bad. There are people out there who want you to feel small and disempowered. They want you to feel like poop. And I'm here to tell you that self-care can be a radical act in which you say, screw you, and you take care of you. So that means things like the boring things like getting sleep, eating some good food, taking a bath or a shower, going out for a walk, like whatever it is, getting some exercise. Take care of you, because you can't do anything unless you take care of yourself first. It's that whole thing. I know people have said this a million times, but you got to put the oxygen mask on first before you put it on the child, because you're not going to be any help to them if you're not able to breathe, right? So you got to put on the oxygen mask first, and you got to take care of yourself. You got to take care of yourself and your well-being. Physically, make sure you've got those, you're all checked up at the doctor, get your vaccinations updated, because they're, we'll see what happens, but I'm a little worried about what's going to happen to healthcare in the States. Just make sure that you are stocked up on any medications you might need. Make sure that that you are taking care of yourself. So physical self-care, I think, is a priority. You have to prioritize that. And it can be really hard. Like when we're feeling depressed, when we're feeling disempowered, when we're grieving, when we're feeling lost, sometimes just the act of taking a shower can be so hard, and yet it is the best thing that we can do. And so make sure that you are taking care of your physical self. The second point I have is kind of a follow-up to that, which is taking care of your mental health. So, we got to take care of our bodies. We live in these vessels, we need to take care of them. But taking care of our mental health, and that's going to look different for like each person, right? But I think things like journaling can definitely be really helpful. Going out for a walk, being in nature, get away from the screens, be in nature, go for a walk, go outside. Like even if you live in the middle of the city, like walk around the park, walk around your block, like whatever it is, just go outside, be in nature, observe, the cycles of nature, all of that. Like take care of your mental health. Mental health too can be just like reading a good book. There's nothing wrong with escaping into a good book once in a while, escaping into like our favorite TV show that brings us comfort. I think a lot of people during the pandemic really found that like comforting TV shows, like rewatching old favorites or watching a comforting show, like I know Schitt's Creek was really popular during that time, but just something that gives us comfort can be really good. It can restore us. There's nothing wrong with having those moments of escape. As long as we're not sticking our head in the sand, I think it's important. We need those breaks. We can't be like full on all the time. So having that mental self-care, I think, is super duper important for ourselves. And that's going to look different for everyone, right? Like for me, I love like putting on a record or like watching, like some nonsensical TV, something that makes me laugh, or like baking shows, like the Great British Bake Off or the Great Canadian Baking Show. They're great. I love those. So watching those things can give you a sense that like not everyone in the world is an asshole. So it can help restore some of your faith in humanity, that's for sure. So doing things like that for your mental health can be really important. Don't inundate yourself with horror. Keep, reminding yourself that there are still good things in the world, for sure. The third point that I have is also taking care of your spiritual life too. Now, again, you may not have a lot of energy for this, but pulling a card in the morning, lighting a candle at night, it can be really as simple as that. Sometimes even just giving ourselves self-care things can feel overwhelming when we're overwhelmed with just stuff in the world or in our lives, right? But making sure to make some time for spirituality, even if it's something as tiny as that, can be really great. So, I pull a card every morning. It reminds me like, okay, here's a nice thought for the day. Here's something good. Lighting a candle, or maybe like if you're grieving, lighting a candle for a loved one can be a really lovely way of just like doing a little thing that honors them. Paying attention to your spirituality. You might want to do a big ritual. You might want to do a spell, especially any spell work that's around like, protection, or around sending away negative energy, or, about any cause that you care about. It can be a wonderful way to feel empowered. And I think like magic does have power. Like it does give you power in the world. I wouldn't be doing this stuff if I didn't believe that it worked, right? So I think it's really important to remember your spirituality, remember your touchstones, even if it's just, you're at your altar and you pull a card, or you just dust your altar off and you put your crystals back on there or whatever. That's still doing something. Like it's like whatever. It's important to nurture your spiritual life, to know that you are connected to something bigger and that you are connected to divinity. I think is really important when we're going through difficult times. The fourth tip I have is to learn a skill. Now, I think this is interesting that a lot of people's reaction during the pandemic was to do things like learn how to make sourdough bread, or learn some DIY stuff or around the yard or in their house. And I think that, learning a skill helps us to feel empowered. And it helps us to feel like we can learn other things if we have to, right? Like learning a skill, saying, you know what, I could be anything. It could be like, I'm gonna learn how to change the oil in my car by myself. Anything like that. That's a practical skill that we can use, helps us to feel empowered, especially when it feels like the world is in chaos around us. It helps us to feel like, okay, I can do this. I can take care of myself. I can learn things. I'm a smart person. All of those things can help us to really feel empowered in our lives. I've heard people talking online. I heard this during the pandemic too, people talking about like learning, growing a garden or canning or baking or any of these like sort of like life skills that can help us when things are like feel like they're chaotic and they're rocky and we don't really know where things are going to go, especially when we're feeling like things economically are quite rocky and we don't know what's going to happen. Learning some skills like DIY skills or some skills for yourself can be really, really empowering. And I mean, hey, I mean, if the worst doesn't happen, then great. You've just learned a skill. Like, you haven't lost anything. That's for sure. It's good to know these kind of skills, right? And the thing is, like, you're not going to be able to know everything. So, if we have, like, let's say we know how to bake bread and somebody else down the street knows how to grow tomatoes, we can make a tradesy, right? So we can help each other out, right? If we have these kind of skills, we don't need to keep offloading these skills to other people. The fifth tip that I have is keep your friends close, keep your community close, be around people that you love and that you trust, that you know have your back and you have their back. I remember like when the pandemic began, we were very much like calling people and checking in with them. And so, I think it's important to have your friends, your besties, your like people around you that you can call and talk to, like especially if you're upset about something or you need help with something, to know that you have people in your corner, to know that there are people there for you when things are difficult, is even if it's just to listen to you on the phone, is so important. Also important to like go out and be together. I think one of the things that happens sometimes in societies where there is, fascism or dictatorships or like a lot of like oppressiveness, is they want to feel people to feel divided. They want people to feel like they're against each other and that you can't trust anyone. And so it's really important to have networks of people that you can trust, that you do trust, and to get to know your neighbors and to talk to people, because, it's a lot harder to do those kind of things if people are talking to each other and they're together. So, on a political level, but I think also just personally, and even if you're not going through a difficult political time, when we're going through difficult times in our own lives, it's a lot easier when we have friends around us than when we feel like we're all alone, that we're doing it all by ourselves. Like being able to just call someone up and talk to them, I think, is hugely psychologically benefit, and being there for each other and helping others when they're having a difficult time. Like maybe your time isn't so difficult, but maybe your friend's having a horrible time. They're really upset about all this. Listening to them, like helping them. Sometimes when we help others, it gets us away from ourselves and helps us to feel good too. So there is benefit to, of course, just to help others because it's a good thing, obviously, right? But it also benefits us too to help others. The sixth thing I would say, there's number six, is creativity. Creativity helps you to be empowered. It helps you to express your voice. Music is a great way to express yourself. Same with art, drawing. But maybe your art doesn't look traditional. Maybe you love to dance. Maybe you like to garden. Maybe cooking is your creativity. But finding a creative outlet, I think, is so important because creativity helps us feel connected to ourselves, connected to spirituality and to something bigger. It helps us to express our feelings in ways that sometimes we can't do directly with words, by telling stories. Like if we're a writer or we like to tell stories, that helps us to give ourselves a sense of place in the world and to talk about difficult things. Like creativity is incredibly, incredibly empowering. And so finding a creative outlet, I think, can be wonderful and really help us to take some of our power back. Creativity as well, there's nothing like listening to music, looking at other people's art, reading good books, letting those things inspire you, can also be incredibly helpful. So creativity is a wonderful outlet as well. Number 7, I would say, is get off. I know I'm doing this online. The irony of that, but stop consuming so much internet malarkey, as I say it. If you go on TikTok or Twitter especially, it is just, the algorithm will feed you all sorts of nonsense. There is some really great stuff out there too. Like, don't get me wrong, there are some wonderful things out there, but there is garbage, like so much garbage, and it is so easy to look at stuff and just feel like so disempowered and so heavy about the world. If you are, like, when you go online, first of all, limit your time. I find that I've trying to keep myself, and I'm preaching to the choir here, let me tell you, to certain time blocks, and really trying to curate things so that it is informative and positive. Now, that does not mean, I think there is a danger about just putting themselves into bubbles where they only want to hear what they want to hear, and I think there is a danger to that as well. But you shouldn't have to, like, if something's like abusive, if something's like disempowering, if something like makes you feel like terrible about yourself, that's not being informed. That's just, you know, that's just self-destructive, like looking at that stuff. That's just letting garbage, it's like eating garbage, you know. So it's a balance. Like, I like to be informed, but I don't want to be inundated with people's horror, because the thing is, like, the more negative things are, unfortunately, the more engagement it often gets. Like, it's just the way I think people are hardwired, and it always skews algorithms to the negative. So, like, making sure that you are putting positive things in your feed, that you are training the algorithm to give you positive things, can be really helpful. I think also making sure that you stay informed. I think that there's a difference between being informed and being inundated. You know, it's one thing to read about something that's going on and be like, okay, I'm aware that this is happening in the world. And there's another thing to go and seek out gory videos of what's happening to people, so that you can have nightmares at night about it. You're not helping anybody with that. Like, it's not saying that we're denying those things are going on, but it is not helpful. It's not good for your mental health. It is not helpful to those people. It is not, it's definitely not, like, it's not a good thing. You know, be informed, go to news sites that you trust, ones that are not sensationalistic, ones that aren't like heavily skewed in their bias one way or another. Like, and I know that's really difficult right now, but try to get the facts of what's going on in the world so that you can make informed decisions without putting yourself into, like, traumatizing yourself with terrible things. Like, I remember when October 7th happened and hearing about the terrible, terrible things that were happening. I made a deliberate decision for my mental health to not go and look at those videos of what was happening to people, because reading about it for me was hard enough. Or any conflict in the world, like Ukraine, all of those things, was difficult enough, rather than seeing those images. And it's not because I'm denying those things are happening. I'm very well aware that those things are happening, but I know that it's not going to be helpful for me or helpful to any of those people if I watch those things. And I also feel like, to me, and this is just a personal belief, watching those things feels disrespectful to the people that are suffering. I feel like it's, if there's a term for it, it's like, I feel like it's just disrespectful to watch somebody's, like, last moments or something horrible happening to them. I cannot imagine, like, if that was your loved one watching that, right? So that's for me personally. I know different people have different feelings about those kind of things, but I think it's really important to know that, like, inundating yourself with horror just traumatizes you, and it does not actually help any of the people that you want to help, right? Which leads to the next thing that I'm going to say, which is point number 8, which is, you know, not everyone's an activist, and that's totally okay. But, you know, if you're feeling disempowered, and especially if you're feeling politically disempowered, it's important to find something, I think, community-wise, even at the grassroots community level, that you can do. And so it may be really small, and right now you may not feel like you have a ton of energy for that kind of stuff, and that's okay. But, you know, even little things like supporting a cause. You can't fix all the problems in the world, and you're not asked to. but pick something that you care about that you want to support in some way, even if it's just like giving a little bit of money. Some people might want to do more stuff, and that's okay. But doing those little things make you feel like you're part of something and that you're doing something and can help things. Because if everybody does that and if everybody works together, then we can get a lot accomplished, right? Um, I think one of the big criticisms that I have as somebody who thinks of themselves as like on the left, probably more center left, but on the left, is I see a lot of people who, one of the things I think that is one of the downfalls of the left is that they're critical, so critical of people for not doing things right, they drive people away. So, for example, I saw somebody online criticizing, I guess there were women in the States who had voted for Harris, and they wanted a way to signal to each other that they voted for Harris, that they were not somebody who'd voted for Donald Trump. And so they were making or buying blue bracelets. And this person was like, those women shouldn't be, and they were saying women of a certain color, which annoys me, but shouldn't be doing these blue bracelets. They should be giving money to charity instead. Well, first of all, of course, giving to charity is good. I'm not saying don't give charity. Of course, it's good, right? It's one of the ways you can definitely empower yourself. But when you tell people like, oh, you're a bad person for wanting something that would help to signal to others like, hey, I have the same values as you, or makes them feel a little bit empowered after feeling incredibly disempowered, that's not helpful. That's not helpful. And that is what drives people away. And I think that's what one of the biggest problems that the left has right now is that we have so many people who are getting on to and I'm not everybody, but there's enough people out there, we've seen them online, who get on a soapbox and who tell everybody, you're not doing it right. If you're like this, then you need to be doing this. And if you don't agree with me, then I'm going to cut you off, and this and this. And it just drives people away. Like, it's just self-righteous judgment. And then they go, well, why aren't people supporting us? Well, because you're driving people away by being self-righteous, judgmental, telling people that they're doing everything wrong, that there's nothing they could possibly ever do right. Of course, people are going to turn away from you, and then you wonder why that happened. So, like, we need to bring people together. Like, what this person could have done is said, hey, that's a really great idea. Blue bracelets. Blue bracelets? Can I say that properly? Blue bracelets. I might have to say that several times. Anyway. What they could have done is said, hey, that's a great idea. You know what we could do? We could make a bunch of blue bracelets and we could sell them, and then we could give that money to charity. Instead of trying to shame people for wanting something that, especially when they feel disempowered, when they're still in shock about the results of this particular election, to say to people like, hey, you're doing it wrong. And I think like nobody wants to hear that. The other thing too I find is that if you keep telling people that they're bad guys all the time, at some point people are going to turn around and tell you, yeah, fine, sure. I learned that from being in a religious school for 10 years, that if you keep telling people that they're sinful and horrible, one day they're just going to turn around to you and go, yep, I am. So I think we need to stop that like self-righteousness, that judgment, telling people they're doing it wrong. You need to bring people together, not tear them apart. And I think that's just in general, we need to be doing that. We need to be kind of coming together with people. Rant on that part down. But anyway, get involved. Try to, even if it's small, very small. I know not all of us, a lot of us are super busy. I find sometimes the people too who are shaming people for not being big activists are often people that don't have a ton of responsibilities in their life. They're people, and that's fine. We're all in different places in our life, but people that are single, people that, often, yeah, they're single, or they don't have kids, or they don't have a bunch of responsibilities like caring for sick or elderly people. They don't have to work 2 jobs to make ends meet. So, what, other people just don't have the energy or the time for, all this activist stuff because they have lives that are full of responsibilities that they're already doing. The other thing too is there are a lot of people who are doing things quietly. And I often find that those people are the most effective people. The people who are shouting out to the room about, look at all the stuff I'm doing, and how great of an activist I am, are often the same people doing all the judgy stuff. They're actually like really, really mean to people in like, in a lot of real life situations, right? I'm not saying all, but it's just like a pattern that I see. So get involved. You don't have to shout it out to the room. If you are somebody who has less responsibilities and you want to be more active and activist, that's wonderful. We need people like that too. Just, try to put the judgment and shame somewhere else. Like, just get rid of that, please. We need to all work together. Even if we don't all agree with each other on every single thing, I think we have to keep the broader picture in mind. The other thing too is we have to look at the long term, right? I think that one thing that the right was very good at was looking at the long term and starting at the grassroots level and working their way up. And I think that we have to be good at that too. And we have to learn to be good at that. So get involved, even if it's in the smallest way you can. I think that's wonderful. The ninth tip that I have is finances. We don't all have this luxury. Most of us are living paycheck to paycheck. I've heard people online who are like, save up your money and move away if you can. That is not the reality for most people. But do make sure that you are trying to be as fiscally responsible as you can, because we don't know what's coming, right? And we don't know if things are going to get worse financially or not. And that's not to scaremonger, but it is to be cautious. And so that just means, like, try to live within your means. Try not to, go into any more debt. If you have debt, if you can, try to pay off debt, even if it's a little bit, that's great. Try to live within your means. Don't take big financial risks right now. Also, like, reuse things. Don't, try to keep the wastefulness down to, like, be conservative with what we have, right? Because again, prices and things may go up. There may be some economic instability. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And I think that's part of the self-care. Again, not everyone's in that situation though. So I know, like, everybody financial situation is different, but it's just like being cautious, I think, with our finances can be another great way to self-care. I think also buying physical things rather than subscriptions, I think, is really empowering as part of that. And what I kind of mean by that is that, I mean, there's nothing wrong with, like, Spotify. I have Spotify. I don't pay for it. I have the free one, but and I know lots of people do streaming and Netflix and all that. And that's all fine and great. But, I think there's something to be said about owning physical objects. So, like, buying music, buying actual, like, records or CDs, buying DVDs if you like a movie or a TV show, buying physical books. Because if something's on a platform, that platform can be censored. That platform can go down. People can wipe something away. They can erase things. Buying, when we're buying and consuming entertainment and information, I think having physical copies of things makes it a lot harder for people to try to erase things that they don't want to see or hear. So things like that can be really important. And the 10th thing, and I think that one of the most important things, is don't let bad people turn you into a bad person. So there's a saying in Stoicism, it's Marcus Aurelius, which is the best revenge is being unlike the person who offended you. And so, this is something that has helped me through some difficult times. Like when I was getting divorced from my ex-husband, who was abusive and was harassing me. That really helped, kind of like that I wasn't going to let him bring me down to his level. Also, this summer, if you've been following me here, you know that I unfortunately found out that a former boyfriend of mine was murdered, which was traumatizing for sure. And I remember thinking that saying and thinking, like, well, I don't go around murdering people, so whatever done, right? Like, I don't murder people. But what I kind of came to the conclusion of is that, I wasn't going to let those people turn me into someone who was cynical and jaded, or somebody who despaired at the world. I wasn't going to let them dim my light or change me as a person because they did something horrible. And I think that that's really important right now, is that if you are feeling despondent, if you are seeing some of the horrible, horrible things that some people are saying to people online, i.e., what was it that Nick Fuentes talking about, things like the whole, like, your body, my choice, disgusting stuff. Don't let those people steal your joy. Don't let them disempower you. Don't let them, don't let them make you lose sleep or not take care of yourself. Do not give them power, because that's what they crave. They crave power over others because there's a hole in them that they are trying to fill with feeling like they are bigger than others. They're actually incredibly insecure. And so do not feed them. Don't feed the trolls. It doesn't mean you ignore that it's happening, but you don't feed it. You don't let it dim your light and change who you are. And you don't let them rob you of your joy. So make sure that you are feeding yourself joy still. Again, we need to be informed about what's happening in the world, of course, but don't let somebody like that steal your joy. Make sure that you are surrounding yourself with things that empower you and that fill you up with love and with joy. So being around people that love you and that you love, listening to your favorite song, watching your favorite movie, doing a creative hobby that you love to do, hugging your kitty cat or your dog or whatever. Don't let those people steal your joy. Don't, as I think it was Ryan Holiday that said, don't let bad times or bad people turn you into a bad person. So we have to keep doing what's right. We have to keep living according to our values and our integrity. And so I think that's important, a really important one to remember. So I hope that this has helped you. I know not everyone's going to agree with my thoughts here or my political views, and that's okay. We don't all have to agree with each other. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people are making right now, is thinking that we have to agree with each other on everything in order to accomplish something. And that is not helpful to us. I understand not everyone's going to agree with me, and that's totally okay. If you please share your thoughts, and if you have any other tips right now, or how you've been feeling about things, whether positive or negative, that's fine. As long as things are respectful, I have no problem with that. You can put in the comments below. If it's like disrespectful, trolling, whatever, I get rid of it. I mean, it's my channel, right? But if it's a respectful disagreement, I don't have a problem with that. Anyway, I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. If you've made it to the end of this, thank you for listening to me ramble. I just had to get my feelings out anyway. Thank you for listening. You guys are wonderful and amazing. I appreciate you all so much, especially my patrons. You guys are awesome. If you want to join my Patreon, you can check it out below. I have to do the plug. Also, my Etsy shop, I've got things back up and running. So Etsy shop is back up. Awesome. You can check that out there if you'd like reading. Otherwise, just thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate it. Let's stick together, all the good people. We need to stick together and help each other out. And as always, peace and love and rock.